Turning to an update to the body found in a Waipahu acupuncture shop Thursday morning. Honolulu police today identified the victim as 47-year-old John Tokuhara.
And the suspect in the murder of a Waipahu acupuncturist has pled not guilty. Eric Thompson is accused of killing John Tokuhara in January. Prosecutors say Thompson disguised himself and his vehicle before going to Tokuhara's Waipahu office and then allegedly shot the acupuncturist 4 times in the face.
Eric Thompson's murder trial is also winding down. Thompson is charged with killing the man who had an affair with his wife, Waipahu acupuncturist John Tokuhara.
On a typical suburban evening, a most sinister plot began to unfold, shattering the delicate veneer of a tranquil neighborhood. The calculated movements of a lone individual glimpsed at the periphery of surveillance betrayed a deadly intent. As fate's threads began to entwine, the lives of those caught in the web of duplicity and betrayal were altered irreparably. The darkness that gathered would soon expose hidden truths, sow seeds of doubt, and forever tarnish the very fabric of innocence. On Thursday, the 13th of January 2022, the weather in Oahu, Hawaii was warm and the skies were clear. At approximately 8 a.m., Lily Tokuhara went to visit her son, John. The previous night, John, who was 47 at the time, had told his mother that he planned to stop by and pick up some dinner she had prepared for him. When Lily arrived at John's acupuncture and healthcare clinic, she saw his white Tacoma truck parked near the entrance. She entered through the back door, which was unlocked, as the front door, facing Wahoo Depot Street, had been out of use for at least 6 months and was secured with a chain. Inside, Lily found her son lying on the office floor with a pool of blood near his head, and he was unresponsive. She immediately contacted emergency services. Officer John Minter from the Honolulu Police Department was the first to arrive. He found a spent .2 caliber shell casing on the office floor. Later, 2 more casings were found. One was discovered underneath John, and another was located behind the refrigerator. The autopsy revealed that John had died from a gunshot wound to the head. He had been shot at least 4 times. A substantial amount of cash, approximately $4,000 in large bills, was found near John in his office. If they had been aware of the money, it appeared that the assailant had not been interested in taking it. John Tokuhara was unmarried and childless, but he had maintained a close relationship with his family and had many long-standing friends. He had shared a powerful bond with his mother, Lily, and had been a devoted uncle to his sister's children. John was deeply passionate about the ocean and spent countless hours fishing, surfing, and paddling. After completing his master's degree in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, John established and managed the Tokuhara Acupuncture and Healthcare Clinic, which he ran independently for nearly 2 decades. John's clinic was a staple in Oahu, and he was well respected by the community, although he maintained a strong bond with his family and enjoyed numerous long-standing friendships. As investigators looked into John's life, they struggled to identify potential suspects. Detectives reconstructed the events of John's final hours and discovered 2 mobile phones on his desk, one of which he had only used to play Pokemon Go. The game had been active on that phone from 5:40 p.m. to 8:45 p.m., the evening before his body was discovered. John's mother, Lily, had last communicated with him shortly after 6 p.m. when he texted her to discuss dinner plans, but he never showed up. Security camera footage captured a suspicious white 4-door Silverado pickup truck turning onto Wahoo Depot Street from Farrington Highway at 5:57 p.m. The truck made a few quick turns, passed by the intersection near the clinic, and then vanished from sight. Moments later, an individual emerged on foot, wearing a light-colored bucket hat, dark sunglasses, a head covering, and a scarf. This person carried a brown shopping bag and entered John's office at approximately 6:16 p.m., which coincided with the last recorded activity on John's primary mobile phone. Time passed and the same person exited John's office. No one else entered or left until Lily arrived at 8 a.m. the following morning. As the white Silverado traveled along Wahoo Depot Street, its front license plate was briefly visible. Enhanced surveillance footage indicated that the first 3 characters of the plate had been letters, followed by 3 numbers. The Honolulu Police Department's Strategic Enforcement Detail identified 53 Silverado pickup trucks that matched the description. 4-door, white, models from 2014 to 2016 with a license plate format of 3 letters followed by 3 digits. After methodically eliminating 52 vehicles, only 1 remained, Eric Thompson's Silverado. Eric, aged 34, had been a former client of John's, having undergone treatment for carpal tunnel syndrome. He had operated a thriving contracting business, was married to his high school sweetheart, and had a 3-year-old daughter. Detectives examined John's primary cell phone and discovered thousands of messages exchanged with Joyce Thompson, Eric's wife. The messages had been deeply personal, indicating a romantic relationship that had ended abruptly nearly 7 months before John's death. Investigation. The investigation unveiled a startling possibility. John's murder could have been connected to his affair with Joyce, placing Eric's motive under scrutiny. As detectives continued their inquiry, they sought to comprehend Eric's behavior leading up to John's murder. Had Eric's discovery of the affair incited a fatal rage? The investigation persisted. Joyce maintained her relationship with John under one stipulation: she wouldn't leave her husband. In July, Joyce reached out to John to inform him of Eric's awareness of their affair. Eric had confronted her regarding a late-night outing she had made during his work trip. He had observed her leaving the house at 1 a.m. via their home security cameras. After confessing to the entire situation, Joyce resolved to terminate her relationship with John. She and Eric decided to work on repairing their marriage. Joyce and Eric Thompson had first met at Kalani High School in East Honolulu and subsequently married on January 14, 2017. On the evening of John's murder, Eric departed from his residence in his white 2014 Silverado around 5:20 p.m., heading towards the highway. Although surveillance footage hadn't provided a continuous account of Eric's movements, the duration of his drive had been nearly consistent with the timeline. According to Google Maps, the journey from the highway entrance to the clinic would have taken approximately 35 to 55 minutes. The Chevrolet Silverado was first captured on video surveillance in the Pahu area at 5:57 p.m., 37 minutes after Eric had left his home. Neighbors' cameras recorded Eric returning to his driveway at 6:47 p.m. Detectives suspected that Eric had taken measures to eliminate evidence related to the crime. Less than an hour later, the same camera documented the illumination of a fire in Thompson's backyard, which had lasted for about 5 minutes. Eric had exited the house again that night, with a visible item in the bed of the pickup truck, a crossbox typically used for tool storage. The Honolulu Police Department had seized 12 registered firearms belonging to Eric Thompson, along with 2 unregistered .22 caliber rifles that matched the likely murder weapon. However, testing had revealed that none of these firearms were a match. Additionally, over 30,000 rounds of .22 caliber ammunition had been uncovered. Surveillance footage had captured a light-colored bucket hat believed to belong to the shooter, falling to the ground as the individual crossed Wahoo Depot Street. A homeless passerby had picked it up, worn it briefly, and then hung it in his tent. Forensic analysis of the hat had revealed fibers and a hair, which were examined alongside DNA samples from the rim and crown. Although the results were not conclusive, Eric Thompson could not be ruled out as a potential source of the DNA. On Valentine's Day, 2022, Eric Thompson was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a firearm in connection with another felony. He had posted a $1 million bond and began preparing for his trial.
Mr. Thompson will be entering a plea of not guilty, and we will be proceeding to trial in this case.
Trial and plea. The prosecution had focused on Eric's motive, stemming from Joyce's affair with Jon Tokuhara. Eric was portrayed as a controlling perfectionist, having had a successful business and lavish lifestyle, and having saved for a $2 million home. Joyce's infidelity had led Eric to demand confession and apologies to her parents. Over 5,600 direct messages between Jon and Joyce Thompson had become crucial evidence. Eric Thompson had maintained a plea of not guilty, and the trial had continued. Eric returned approximately an hour later at 10:43, and the box had remained clearly in view. A thorough search of the Thompson residence had yielded precious little direct evidence that linked Eric or Joyce to the murder. However, several circumstantial indicators had warranted attention, including a bucket in the backyard that had sustained burn marks and had been tucked away in a wheelbarrow. The defense had shifted its strategy, focusing on Jon Tokuhara's troubled past instead of Eric Thompson's alleged motives. Witnesses had recounted Jon's pattern of pursuing women already in committed relationships, which had led to the dissolution of several marriages. John DeMarco, an ex-husband whose marriage had ended due to Jon's affair with his spouse, had testified about the repercussions of Jon's actions on his life. Daryl Feuette, another individual whose relationship had been affected by Jon's involvement, had also taken the stand. Although initially regarded as a person of interest, Daryl's alibi had exonerated him, and no evidence had connected him to the murder. However, Daryl had decided to erase data from his mobile phone prior to his interview with the police, which had raised eyebrows. The defense had underscored Jon's involvement in illegal gambling, noting the presence of $4,000 in large bills at the crime scene and his betting activities, which had not been thoroughly examined. As the trial had unfolded, the prosecution's narrative had encountered obstacles. The portrayal of Jon Tokuhara as an innocent victim had deteriorated, revealing a more intricate character marked by deceit and manipulation. Eric Thompson's defense team had continued to challenge the prosecution's assertions, presenting a case that questioned the actual circumstances surrounding Jon's murder. As the trial unfolded, John DeMarco and Daryl Feuette had taken the witness stand, both asserting their innocence regarding the murder of Jon Tokuhara. They had attributed the failures in their relationships to their former partners rather than to Jon himself. Afterwards, Eric Thompson provided his account. He had expressed his shock and disappointment upon learning of Joyce's affair with Jon. Eric had elaborated on how Jon had previously assisted them with fertility challenges, which had made the betrayal even more difficult to comprehend. While Eric's initial response had been one of anger, he had eventually realized that confronting Jon would not have altered the situation. Instead, he had opted to concentrate on forgiving Joyce and mending their relationship. Joyce had agreed to terminate her involvement with Jon and had made efforts to restore Eric's trust. Gradually, their marriage had begun to heal. Eric had testified that Joyce had had no further communication with Jon, rendering him irrelevant in their lives. He had recognized that the issues they had faced had stemmed from their own relationship rather than from Jon. By the time Eric's testimony had concluded, the jury had witnessed a different aspect of him. A husband wounded by infidelity, yet striving to forgive and progress. Although the prosecution's case had hinged on Eric's motive, his testimony had revealed a more complex and nuanced reality. Upon learning of Joyce's infidelity, he recognized that he had been neglecting her and taking her for granted. Eric had firmly rejected any association with the white Silverado that had been recorded on surveillance in Oahu on the evening of John Tokuhara's murder. He had also categorically denied any participation in John's death.
January 13th, 2022, did you kill John Tokuhara?
No, I didn't.
During cross-examination, Eric's apparent acceptance of the betrayal had drawn scrutiny. Prosecutors had delved into his awareness of Joyce and John's relationship, emphasizing the intensity of their connection. Eric had reconciled with the details of the affair, including Joyce's admission of love for John. Nevertheless, he had asserted that he had never accessed her phone or examined the numerous messages, photos, or videos exchanged between them. After the affair had ended, Eric had stated that he had refrained from looking at Joyce's phone or messages.
After discovering the affair, you never looked at her messages between her and John Tokuhara?
No.
He had testified that trust had been re-established in their marriage, as evidenced by a post-marital agreement that they had signed merely 11 days before John's murder. This agreement specified that Eric would retain ownership of the house and sole custody of their daughter in the event of a divorce. Prosecutors had contended that Eric had coerced Joyce into signing it, while the defense had argued that it was Joyce's way of demonstrating her commitment. Joyce's actions had appeared to reaffirm her loyalty, yet the couple's marital difficulties had continued to linger beneath the surface. Eric's testimony had unveiled a concerning dynamic within his marriage. He had asserted that Joyce's penchant for psychic readings had resembled a substance dependency, comparable to alcoholism, a perilous path from which she had struggled to extricate herself. After the affair had ended, Joyce had consented to cease her psychic consultations. However, in December 2021, just a month before John Tokuhara's murder, she had clandestinely sought the services of another psychic. Prosecutors had seized upon this as indicative of unresolved issues within the marriage and Eric's ongoing attempts to exert control over Joyce. Eric's alibi for the night of the murder had faced intense scrutiny. He had maintained that he had left his driveway on 2 occasions. First, to dispose of construction debris at the Waimanalo Convenience Center, and second, to purchase food at a local shop, for which he had paid in cash. The prosecution had presented testimony from Rocky Javier, a security guard at the dump, who had stated that he had never encountered Eric. Additionally, the bricks Eric had claimed to have discarded had been identified as prohibited items. Surveillance footage had captured Eric's Silverado leaving the driveway at 5:20 p.m. with an empty truck bed. Compounding the situation, a mysterious 5-minute flare of flames in Eric's backyard that evening had aroused suspicion. Eric had attributed this to tiki torches he had ignited while entertaining his daughter. The defense had called upon a fire expert who had testified that the flames could plausibly have originated from tiki torches, potentially dispelling the notion of incriminating evidence. Eric's credibility had been at stake as both the prosecution and defense had continued to present opposing narratives. The trial's outcome had hung precariously in the balance as Eric's defense team had laid out their arguments. They had scrutinized the prosecution's evidence, pointing out inconsistencies in both the video recordings and the DNA analysis. A defense DNA expert's testimony had raised doubts regarding the association of the bucket-style hat with Eric. Meanwhile, modifications made to the timestamps of the security footage by investigators had called into question the movements of the Silverado. Inconsistencies in the timeline had surfaced, contradicting the details provided in the arrest affidavit. A 2-minute interval between the purported shooting and the time John had unlocked his phone had created further confusion. Cell phone records indicated that Jon's Pokemon Go application had remained active for several hours following the presumed time of death, leading to speculation about the actual timing of Jon's demise and Eric's possible involvement. Joyce Thompson's silence, safeguarded by spousal privilege, had added another layer of complexity to the case. The defense's depiction of Jon's secret life had stood in stark contrast to the prosecution's focus on Eric's alleged dishonesty. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury failed to reach a consensus, resulting in a mistrial. Judge Paul Wong had announced the mistrial, marking a significant moment in the proceedings. Eric's legal team had reconvened, recognizing the absence of definitive evidence. They had anticipated the opportunity to present their case anew, optimistic that fresh evidence might surface. The mistrial had underscored the necessity of examining the situation beyond initial perceptions. Eric's future had remained ambiguous, leaving all parties to ponder the developments of the next trial. The legal proceedings had progressed, with Eric's defense team readying themselves for the retrial, which had been initially set for October 2023. The outcome had remained unpredictable, with only time poised to unveil the truth. Conclusion. The shadows lifted, revealing the shocking reality that wickedness had lurked, unobserved in ordinary settings. Nevertheless, in the aftermath of this revelation, the community found a path to recovery. The fragile bonds of trust, once fractured, began to mend. The complex tapestry of questions and doubts gradually unraveled, giving rise to a renewed sense of solidarity and resilience. Although scars still lingered, the human spirit's capacity for forgiveness, healing, and redemption shone brightly, illuminating the route towards restoration and renewal. What are your thoughts? Did Eric kill Jon out of jealousy? Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Do subscribe to our channel, like, share it with your family and friends, and comment below. Your feedback fuels our creativity and helps us bring you more awesome content.